Well, and people also remember their struggle or working hard or where they came from, at least if you have some level of success. And part of that in your life is what's going to please you the most.
Yeah.
And sometimes people take that so far. I mean, there's so many people on their deathbed that their main regret is overworking, not seeing their family, not being present, and not enjoying the parts of their life that are truly a gift.
Yeah.
And once you realize that you have these moments and you can kind of be inside these moments and live in the moment, as strange as it sounds, it does benefit you to really realize, like, there is something to there's no past, there's no past, there's no future, there's now, because that's real.
Yeah.
There's nothing more real than that.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We have a special guest today, comedian, American, Michigander,
Yes.
I think is how you say it. Dave Landau. Hi.
How are you?
Is it Michigander?
They call it Michigander. Yeah, Michigangster.
I feel like there should be a
Michigander.
vote on that. Michigangster's not bad, but then you can't like introduce your grandma. It's like,
Right.
oh, she grew up. She's a total Michigangster. you
Yeah,
know?
yes.
That wouldn't fly.
She just assumed Detroit or Flint.
Detroiter is probably still,
Detroiter is still a thing.
and then Flintlock. I don't know.
Flint, I don't really know what they call them.
Flintonian.
Yeah, there's not many left. They are almost endangered.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well, they are endangered. They're just almost extinct.
yeah, they're in danger for sure. You can't
It's
drink
no
the
doubt.
water somewhere. It's, human civilization's awesome.
It is. Flint is a great little microcosm, even more so than Detroit, of what it's like to have an auto industry completely go under. And for some reason, there's still a city. And then they do a Netflix documentary about it, how there's only 2 cops left, which is a great way to let every killer and robber in the area know there's only 2 police officers that can patrol all of Flint.
Yeah, that's like putting a sign on the front of your house that says gun-free zone, isn't
Yes.
it? It's a choice that some people make, I suppose.
Yeah, you let everybody know that you can't defend yourself.
Yeah, it's stupid. That's real dumb. Speaking of the car industry, we're tariffing everybody.
That's right.
So TBD on how that all works out.
Yeah, I don't know. Dude, I don't know. It's never been done before in this way that I can tell. So it's a gamble. So I'm not really sure how it's going to work out. People, it just depends on, the person. Some people are freaked out. Some people aren't. I mean, the economy goes up and down. It always has. Your stock portfolio is going to go up and down. It's just the 2,000 points or whatever is a bit, it's a lot.
Yeah, after the what's up today technically, but
I figured it would be.
it'll level out.
Yeah.
It always does. Like the stock market just hates instability mostly.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's Greg Giraldo used to tell this joke during the financial collapse in 2008 that all of his friends spent their 30s like investing and working hard, and he spent his traveling and doing drugs and banging hookers, and they after the financial collapse ended up in the exact same spot. And he goes, well, who was the smart one, Now most of his friends probably didn't overdose, I guess.
No, that's true. I opened for Greg, luckily, a couple times. But yeah, that's
Yeah, he was awesome.
he was fantastic.
He might be the smartest person to ever do comedy.
He may.
Like,
he
honestly,
very well may be.
He's got to be on the short list for that at least.
He's written some of the greatest bits easily ever, and he was the one that did all the roasts better than anybody. I loved him. He was really nice too, but that tends to be fairly common with a lot of addicts who are trying to recover.
And you're one of those.
I'm one of those.
What would you like? At what point, I guess, did you realize that you were an addict? Was it the 10th DUI or?
No, it was the 12th. No, honestly, it was the 13th, I guess, because that's when I finally quit. But well, not DUI, but arrest. But no, the first time I discovered I was an addict, I was eating lunch at a strip mall, or at a mall, big mall, with my friends in Michigan.
And you're how old?
At the time, 16. and I was trying to put rice in my mouth from this Chinese place, but my hands kept shaking so badly from withdrawal that I had to get in I was like, I'll be right back. I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And I got in my car and I went down 8 Mile to this place called Piccadilly. I went in, I got a pint of Bacardi Limon because it was a little more lemonade-y, so it'd be easy to slam. Then I drove back to the mall chugging the pint, got inside, and then my hand was steady and I was able to eat. But then after that, when I started seeing delusions when I wouldn't drink, that was definitely when I started seeing people that weren't there, that was definitely the moment I'm like, oh, this is really serious. Like, I've done brain damage.
You think is that something that's common amongst addicts that I've haven't heard much about?
DTs, delusionary tremens, yeah, it is. It depends on how bad you have them. I mean, with alcohol, there's wet brain. But for me, I had DTs.
I'm sorry, wet brain?
Wet brain.
The fuck is that?
You look it up. It's like your brain is it's destroyed. I mean, it's taken over by booze, and it doesn't function properly. I've only met a couple people that have. It's not good.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
No.
Any condition that is suffixed by the brain is not great.
No, I didn't sleep a lot either, which is probably one of the reasons I didn't grow. But when I was in my bed, I remember the first time I saw a little girl with like pigtails as clear as I am to you right now. And I'm like, what are you doing in here? And she was just silent. And I'm like, why are you here? And that's when I realized, oh, like I didn't think my house was haunted. So I just realized I was withdrawing really badly. And at that time, I was doing so much acid and so much other stuff that ecstasies, it varied, but my brain was just not functioning. There's good times.
Where did it start for you? Which was the first substance, I guess?
I mean, I sipped alcohol, but weed for sure. I mean, other than tobacco, like we used to write, not that that's a substance, but I mean, we used to write out these notes that said like, hey, I'm having a dinner party, so I've sent my son to the store to get me a case of Black and Milds, and we just sent a pack of Black and Milds, and we just wrote a fake name, and every time they'd sell it to us.
You gotta love Michigan,
Yeah. And we were probably 11 maybe at that time, 10 or 11.
I guess that would have been the early 90s then. The early 90s, 80s and 90s were just a different time.
Yeah, it was 93, 94. Yeah.
And you grew up where exactly?
I grew up in the Grosse Pointe Harper Woods border. My driveway was Harper Woods. My house was Grosse Pointe, and that's 8 Mile and I-94 on the east side of Detroit. And Grosse Pointe's very lavish and nice. Harper Woods was very middle class to lower middle class, and then that borders Detroit, which is Detroit.
The precursor to Barry, which was Grosse Pointe Blank, obviously.
Yes.
Great movie. Shitty human being as the actor, apparently. I mean, he's lost his goddamn mind, but...
he's insufferable online, but I love that movie.
Yeah, that movie's... I mean, all of his movies.
Yeah, he's great.
I don't even... When's the last time he was in a movie? Does he just hang out on Twitter now?
It's been a while. He does a lot of, like, direct-to... stream stuff that's pretty bad.
That's probably funded by USAID, right?
It's very possible. I mean, a lot of actors are just people that they're completely empty and then you dump information into. So I'm sure somebody's been telling him all this stuff and he's just regurgitating it as if it's his own thought.
I can't get it past wet brain, to be honest. That's going to all night tonight.
I was wondering if that's what you were looking up.
It was, yeah. I can't get past it. I'm going to have to look into that in depth.
Yeah, you got to be a little careful. You don't want to get to that point. I don't know what point I'm at, but I know my brain wasn't in perfect shape when I've had scans.
Have you done anything to reverse that, like psilocybin or DMT or anything like that?
Well, I did a lot of psilocybin and DMT.
But not to...
Well, not DMT. I did a lot of psilocybin, but just to get high. No, I haven't, but I'm debating. Because microdosing is now used to... It's beneficial to depression, which is why I was using it in the first place in the 90s. And then you have what's the other ketamine, and I used to do a ton of ketamine.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, so
But not for therapeutic reasons.
no. I mean, I guess it was also for depression, but
Technically,
yeah. But I mean, nobody was treating it for that at the time. I was just snorting it off of anything that I could,
Yeah.
We'd even get some in Mexico. You just dry it with a hair dryer.
Yeah. Well, we used to put it on. You put it on top of a plate. You just empty the vial on top of a plate and put the plate over boiling water.
Oh, yeah.
And let it dry over time, and then
you cut it up.
Yeah, and then overdose on it, obviously.
Yeah, then you
Fall into a deep K-hole in a bathtub somewhere.
Yes, you die in a hot tub, and and someone else gets your $800 million.
Yeah, that's not great.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's funny how.
I had a friend that died in a pool from it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty common. It's funny how the pharmaceutical industry, which is supposed to be on the cutting edge of this stuff, is almost always behind just regular drug addicts and learning how to deal with certain things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe behind hippies specifically.
They are.
I don't know if the drug addicts are the one. They're just like taking whatever they can get their hands on. But
Yes.
I got acid from hippies back in the day.
That's where I got it.
From when I was a teenager, you know what I mean? Actually, like I was a preteen when I first started.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. They weren't. It was annoying because I didn't really care about any kind of social stuff back then, but they were into it. So when you interface with them, it's like, yeah, man, this will get you where you need to be. I'm like, I don't. I just need to not be here now, okay? Can it get me there? Can it get me the fuck out of here and not smelling you anymore? But they were on the right track, I think. Certainly, the deeper I get into adulthood and with all the, things that have come to light over the past years, the more I understand the free love hippie movement in the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
I don't think they necessarily knew it for sure at the time, but everything was fake. And I think the mind rebelled, kind of like how in Matrix 2, I think, the architect is like, we tried to make you guys like the perfect world, and your brain rejected it. And I think there's probably something to that. Not about the perfection that they were trying to create, but about how fake everything was, especially after JFK, where people's brains were just like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not listening to Elvis anymore. I'm not listening to the fucking president anymore. I'm going to listen to Ram Dass, Timothy Leary, and the Beatles, and just go get fucked up.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have to rebel against all of it at some point, because if it doesn't add up, you're going to do that. I mean, it's why Elvis himself was, a drug czar from Nixon, even though his liver was basically 95% powder. And I started doing acid at 14, and I think you and I have both done a lot of acid.
Yeah. I started super young, like 11, and I've done it hundreds of times.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, is hundreds,
I had a good time. I've never had a bad trip or anything like that, and I don't remember feeling a whole lot of negativity from it, to be honest. But I think that's, even generally speaking in life, you get to, and this is something I learned while experimenting with acid when I was a kid, you can control your efforts and your attitude, and pretty much everything else you're at the whims of circumstance. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how life is. And once you accept that, then you can really start, like people when you tell them that, they feel like it's some kind of submission or subjugation, but really it's just it's like being in the current. You have to go with it. You know what I mean?
It's finding peace and living in the moment and realizing you don't know what's next.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I definitely discovered was that it was like that life is like a box of chocolates.
Okay, go on.
That life was.
You never know what you're gonna get unless you read the bottom.
Yeah, unless you just. Well, if you're retarded, that's a problem, right?
That's a big problem. I think, and you own Apple for some reason.
It's like being in the ocean's current to some degree, right? There's certainly an attitude and effort and strategy you can use to be as successful as you possibly can in that circumstance, but you're still subject to the circumstance to some degree.
No, it's very true. And with acid, I think what I liked about it was, at least for me at the time and for the years I did it, it made me realize everything was ridiculous. Like every single thing that people were focused on just became hilarious to me when I would be tripping. So I just laughed at everything. I mean, anything. You just look at something, you know, you're like a dog. We trained wolves, and now we have these. Like, it was just little things like that that just would crack me up. But I mean, I had a couple bad trips, but mainly it was like either somebody like pulled out a gun, you were dealing with a dealer that was crappy. You had to go to some hippie's house, like you said, where they were, you know, there's like beads, they're super into fish, and obviously like their dad's been funding their drug habit, and they have no idea. But there was a thing, like I did an acid mescaline, I did a few hits of it, and 7 days later I came down. And at the time, my dad was still alive. I'm going home, and I'm trying to eat with my parents, and like I can't even make out like what's on the plate, and everything is just like lines and moving, like, you know, like the way it would, like, kind of sometimes you get those tracers.
Yeah.
And it was so much of that because I had sleep deprivation.
Yeah, that makes
too.
everything worse.
Dude, it was I was hallucinating like crazy, but nothing specific. Just everything didn't look like it was supposed to be. Like my parents were all big, I was small, the plate was teeny tiny.
Yeah.
It was one of the weirdest experiences I've had, because everything when you're tripping, you're aware what's real and what's not for the most part.
Yeah. It feels like Alice in Wonderland sometimes.
Yes.
For real. Like the intense visual and auditory hallucinations aren't as common as people would think from, you know, the movies and shit like that.
Yeah.
Like take acid, take a hit or a couple of hits of acid and hang out one day and I'm just high, right?
Right.
Laughing at shit, enjoying myself. But you're not seeing, but the old trope was pink elephants. I don't know what the kids say these days. But
yeah, that was also delirium tremens from when you were coming down from booze.
There's a lot more of that when you are on the back end of a 16-hour trip or something like that, which I've done many times.
Yeah, you start seeing just, if you're driving, which many of us may have been, like me, you know, all of a sudden mailboxes are all people. Just because the silhouettes start changing in what you see, so you have to look directly at it to realize what's real and what's not.
Not different than from when you're a kid and there's a coat hanging on the door and you keep thinking it's a ghost or something.
Same difference.
It's the same thing. Your brain just like tries to make patterns out of stuff. But I think for me, it was extremely useful. You know what I mean? In discovering that, like it came in waves. Like, oh shit, I'm not in control. And then it was like, well, I am actually in control of myself. And I didn't know any of this stuff at the time. I didn't know about stoicism and this like commandment to first master yourself before you do anything else.
Yeah, I didn't know any of it.
I didn't know about any of this stuff until way later. But my brain was figuring this out as I went along. And then I kind of stumbled on Adlerian psychology as well, which is like there's no past or future. There's only now.
Right.
There's no such thing as trauma or anxiety or any of that shit. I mean, those are things that we create to justify our own behavior. That's Adlerian psychology anyways.
Right.
Like, one of the examples given is like, a waiter spilled something on me and I couldn't control my anger. I just yelled at the guy. It's like, well, no, you got... you wanted to react in a certain way and you made your anger to justify the yelling that you were about to do. What you could have done is just say, hey, can you help me out? And the guy probably would have, one, helped you out, and two, you probably would have eaten for free as well, right? So you had the option in that moment to do what I call reframing and take something that might be negative or irritating or whatever and be like, all right, cool, it's fine, right? And I'm going to get the best out of this situation. And you know, nobody's fucking that disciplined enough to be perfect that all the time. I'm pretty sure the Dalai Lama fucking gave somebody a poke one time.
Of course he did.
What the fuck did you say to me? Boom! Just like knocked him out. There's no way he didn't hit somebody at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you're actively trying to suppress something at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to say that it's not real when but you are in control of how you react in the moment.
Well, suppression doesn't work though, right?
No.
It doesn't. It never works. I don't think that... over the course of time, even like suppression of your emotion leads to all sorts of wild ass behaviors.
Of course.
Mostly the most dangerous thing, which is dissociation, because you're supposed to reach some kind of physical and social and psychological homeostasis where all these things are clicking at the right time.
Yeah.
The punishment and reward mechanisms in your biology are supposed to be firing. Like, I do something nice for somebody and I feel good about it, or I do something stupid and get caught and I feel like a piece of shit because of it. Right? Like, those things all need to be happening. And when you reach that dissociative point, it's like you're not even a person anymore. You're just an NPC reacting to things for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trouble with addiction too, is you have to learn. I mean, part of it is, do you have trauma? Like, what is it that bothers you? You have to look at that. And then we Band-Aid stuff so much through SSRIs and these other things when we don't really understand the human brain. If we understood the human brain to a degree, we could probably fix addiction. And maybe we can. I mean, there's definitely ways to do it, but it takes a lot of struggle for most people. At least it did for me. Like, I have trouble with that element of self-control. I wish I didn't, but once something feels good, I'll do it. And then, I don't do it now. I know how to control myself. But for a long time, especially when you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, there's an element, too, where, I don't even mean that as a bad way, but it's just, you're just existing, like you said, where you're not really that human.
Yeah.
And all you want to do is hit a dopamine response, which is exactly how phones and everything else, have learned to trick us into wanting to look at it every 3 seconds. Like, the only thing we've learned is brain likes dopamine, but eventually that's got to run dry.
Well, certainly.
Because you need so much more to equal this thing. Yeah. It's like cocaine. It'll never feel as good as the first time you did it. The first time I did coke, it was amazing. The 900th time, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. My nose is bleeding. I don't feel good. Like, it just doesn't bring in the same response.
I've definitely been mid-conversation with some asshole at a bar, and my brain I just stop in the middle of a sentence. And like, no, I'm leaving. This is not... It's not even that it's not good. I don't care about that. It's just like, this is fucking pointless. So what am I doing? I'd rather play video games or read a book or some shit. You said you were talking about your progress. What do you think it is, the stalwart, or the bulwark rather, between you and relapse, I guess? Is it just discipline? Because it is a form of suppression to be completely dry, as they say.
It is, and you feel it.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Like, it's not that I don't enjoy drinking or enjoy doing something. And unfortunately, for a long time, everything was just a game of whack-a-mole. So if I'm hitting one thing, another addiction's popping up. If I'm hitting that addiction, another one's popping up. And it just became, and it was always too hard. I mean, at one point it was weightlifting. I wish it was still that. But, that one I found it really easy to quit. But part of it is, I think, my son, which is a heavy thing to put on him without him knowing, but I have responsibilities and my life is no longer about me. And if I set that example, I'm just doing myself a disservice for the one thing that I've wanted to be, which is a good father. So that's pretty much it. Now, it's tough to say, though. Like, some days, even 15 years later, it's a struggle. And it's because I just don't... One, I enjoy drugs and alcohol. And two, I don't like life all that much, no matter how much I try. But I do love the moments that I share with my family. And I do love things about life, and those are the things I have to focus on. Yeah. But it's just the way I'm wired, and I've gone to therapy. I'm trying to beat that. But whatever there is in me, I know how dangerous I am to myself, that I don't really worry as much about the outside influence, because I know that if anybody's going to kill me, it's probably me.
Yeah. I think that's the case for a lot of people, actually, addict or otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
But to the family part, I mean, certainly with anything that's difficult and requires discipline, purpose matters. Holding discipline without purpose, I don't think it's possible.
It doesn't make sense.
If you're a fucking psychopath, maybe, like if you're a serial killer, they can be, but I guess that's their purpose, right? They're getting either sexual or psychological enjoyment out of the process.
Yeah, there is something that they're, regardless if they have no other feelings, then they like to come when slitting a throat.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I wouldn't mind doing that myself, to be honest, but.
Well, it's hard not to come when you do that.
Yeah, it is very hard. Yeah. It's hard right now, actually. But yeah, it's.
I already have.
It's like, the family part of it. And it isn't fatherhood or being a husband or whatever for everybody, but for most dudes, it's probably something around that, right? At least you're getting some of the same. Maybe it's being a teacher or a coach or a mentor or a soldier or a cop or some shit like that. It doesn't matter. But I think that you, as you mature, you figure out that you are kind of daily the expression of your best and worst attributes, right? So
you're the result of your choices.
Yeah, you've got to work to manage the best and worst of you, right? Just like you're separating wheat and chaff. And it feels like when you're in the right situation, that whatever that thing is that's motivating you, whether it's your career or your family or whatever, simultaneously you can be a murderous savage and a goofy retard.
Yeah.
And then, gushing romantic. I mean, people, especially these days, I was talking to Candace about this morning, actually. Mm-hmm. The toughest men in the history of the world wrote love letters to their women. They weren't just like in between murdering each other. Even.
Yes.
There's a really good book. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm going to look it up soon because I wanted to send it to her. But it's Civil War people writing letters to their girlfriends and wives during the war.
Another great Geraldo bit.
Yeah. Ironically enough, he did talk about that. Fighting. What did he say? Fighting the terrors of tyranny and oppression.
Yes.
It's like, don't fuck nobody till I get home.
Yeah, don't fuck no. And he's like, it's very hot out here because we are in the desert.
Desert. Yeah, it's hot as fuck. But that purpose, what it does is gives you a reason to sharpen and manage your violent nature if you're a man, and it gives you someone to make happy, I guess, with your clown behavior, which is something that all comedians desperately need.
Yes.
So much so that they humiliate themselves in front of large groups of people.
That's right.
Every night.
Almost
to
every night.
And then
just to feel.
Yeah, and then and the final one is like another soul to manage with the romantic or loving side of you, whether it's your partner or your children or all of that, right?
Right.
Or even your friend. It doesn't, like, there's no end to it. I think that's the contract of human emotion, which is, I'm going to give you, as a man at least, I'm going to give you these things, protection and love and entertainment or whatever it is, and then you rescue me from a life that has no purpose.
And right there, exactly. And right there is part of what people, I don't think, grasp about Alcoholics Anonymous and different groups like that, because the second you hear a power greater than yourself, they attribute it to religion, and then they give themselves an out. They go, I would go, but I'm not religious, I'm not this, but that doesn't mean that's what it has to be. A power greater than you is purpose. There's a lot of things that are greater than you that you can look at to help get you to sobriety. And there's so many things. And that's why I find it odd when people go, well, I just focus on this one particular religion that it's supposed to be. And I know there's a lot of people that can make it churchy, and it might not be somebody's cup of tea. But for the most part, I think if you're going in without having any purpose and you can't even identify a power greater than you, you're doomed to fail. I mean, you're setting yourself up to want to.
It's one of the main culprits of the generation, the me generation, as they like to call it now. It's called omnipotence parenting, I believe. And it's like basically teaching your child that they're God. You let them interrupt you. Whenever they ask for something, you give it to them, blah, blah, blah. There's never a clear line. There's never a clear hierarchical line. Like when I was a kid, and my parents would say, because I said so, that was unacceptable to me, right?
Right.
And it still is. There's only a couple of circumstances where I would say that. So, if the kid routinely asks why, I will tell them that why is not a question. You're asking me to expound on what I've already said. Why the why you're asking is not a legitimate question. If you have a specific question about what I just said, you can ask me that question and I'll answer it. But otherwise, this why shit, then because I said so. If you're going to be pedantic in your questioning, I'm going to be pedantic in my response. Now I've got to teach the kid what pedantic means, obviously.
Yes.
But I think that's a good limit. Candace talks about this a lot too on her show. I've heard her talking about it, about part of the because I said so, or we're not discussing this any further, is about delineating the clear hierarchy that's going on here. Like, you're not in control, I'm in control.
Yes.
You're a child, right? And that sounds cruel to some people, especially these days with all these fucking liberals and hippies. But there's nothing cruel about that. There's nothing cruel about teaching your child that there are people that are going to govern them to some degree over the course of their lives. We've all met people that didn't receive that kind of training as a child, right?
Yeah,
that were
problems.
taught that they were taught that they were like the center of the universe, and they all suck.
Yeah, there's not one that you like being around, and they don't really work hard. They're usually handed everything, and I think.
So, what favors are you doing that kid? You know what I mean? It's like to be their friend when they're 6 years old. Like, no, be your parent, man.
Well, yeah, when they're young and they're developmental, at least in my opinion, they're a toddler. They're getting into it, and they ask you why, and they're sincere. I don't think it's the best thing to just say because I said so. Because at least with my son, I would explain why. Like, this is why we can't do this.
But sometimes 3-year-olds will just continuously say why into perpetuity.
And that's when you're like, you just stop.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the reality. It's like you try to do the best you can. But I mean, even in a parenting book, every parenting book you read is kind of based on that sort of new age thinking of not teaching them that they are in control of everything. Or teaching them that they are kind of in control of everything in a way, almost being their friend. Where, like, my dad was a very good, loving man, you know, and my mom was a good person, but I didn't pick restaurants. I didn't decide what music we were listening to in the car. I didn't do, like, none of this stuff.
In the 80s and 90s, there was no, I'm not eating that.
Hell no.
It's like, okay, well, then get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Go to bed, bitch.
Yeah,
that was the answer to that.
You're going to bed or you're crying and eating tuna noodle casserole, regardless if you like it or not. And for some reason, you've already been punched.
Yeah. Well, you got to set the tone, right?
I mean, yeah, there was never... People talk about the family dinners and how that's missed, and I do that with my son as much as possible. But when I think back to the 80s family dinners, I'm not like, oh yeah, those were the best of times.
No, there was a lot of anxiety at those dinners.
That's why we're a very anxious generation.
Yeah. Well, we were also taught that our anxiety mattered and was real.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Instead of just saying, well, that's the natural reaction to uncertainty, so go do something to make yourself certain. That's the solution, right?
Right.
Anxiety is almost always the result of being unprepared or uninformed or unsomething.
Yes.
And though an is a solvable problem, right?
Yes.
You just go do the thing that removes the from that word.
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be. But this is we teach kids to catastrophize a lot now, right? Because we're all in our feelings as well. Like we see ourselves, and it goes back to what you were saying, what we were both saying actually about. You get so far down that rabbit hole that you're not even a person anymore, and you feel like you are some kind of like automaton that things are happening to, not a person that has will and agency, but just like, it's like Eeyore. You know what I mean? Like at no point did Eeyore ever stop and be like, you know what, fuck those trees.
Right.
Just like those leaves that fell on my shit, fuck those things. I'm going to kick the shit out of somebody. He never thought like that, right?
Right.
It was all like, oh, fuck, it happened to me again. It happened to me again. And if you go through life thinking like that, you are proper fucked. I mean, you'll never have a happy day in your life.
No,
you'll have happy moments from time to time, but it'll be dopamine and not serotonin.
Yes.
Just silly. It's silly.
Well, and now, too, like my son plays football and baseball and all that, and it used to be like one kid on the team would cry when they struck out or be upset, and now it's half of them. and I can't, because they can't handle the embarrassment. And you know, I've talked to my son since day one. I'm like, son, do you want to watch old videos of me playing baseball? Like, they're flying right over my head, and I'm in right field, and I just look over, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get that, so somebody should come over here.
Yeah, you call your fucking call your butler, ring a bell.
Yeah, well, my dad's just like, get the ball, like. But I knew I wasn't good at that, so the competitive edge in me in that particular arena was never there. When I was good at something, I would want to compete, but I didn't cry when I lost. I wanted to see why I didn't. Like, I remember one time every kid at school was making a, a Pinewood Derby car.
Yeah.
So I went home, and my dad happened to be out of town, so I didn't know what to make it with, and my mom wouldn't give me anything to whittle it with because it was too dangerous. So I just stuck a bunch of McDonald's stickers to it I had gotten from a Happy Meal and painted it with watercolors. It was horrible. And I brought it in, and because it was heavier than all the other cars because I hadn't whittled it, I won first place. And it was just this piece of crap block with stickers on it. So, you know, and I was like, why did that happen? Then I realized it was weight.
Yeah, it works like that. I would get emotional when I lost, but anger mostly.
Yeah, that's how my son will get.
I wanted to win. Like, I would see, if I lost, I would be, there would be tears present, but more than tears, there would be broken things, and you know, I still that's still something that happens to me today. Not breaking shit or anything, or crying randomly, but.
That makes one of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, I mean, I think that we all have these swells of emotion from time to time, whatever it is that makes it happen in you. For me, it's like, you know, I see people I respect doing something, or even movies like about war and shit like that. Not with the loss, but the heroic actions. It inspires emotion in me, and there's nowhere for it to go. I don't have anybody to fight right now. You know what I mean? So that can get, I think, overwhelming for any dude that has that kind of brain. And then what do you do with that, right? So over time, I learned that that's a good gift to have, and I have to remind myself to allow it to happen, because my nature is to shove that shit down because I'm a dude. You know, to
suppress. That's what our entire generation was taught to suppress.
Yeah, but in reality, that's something that you've got to allow. You have to experience that in the present, and remember the feeling, because that's something you're going to be able to reach for when you have to go do that hard thing that you're imagining doing in that moment, right?
Right.
Like when I'm actually in a fight somewhere, instead of losing my mind and going ape shit, I have to like reach into my back pocket and pull that inspiration or purpose back out and put it in place. You know what I mean? And then act. Right, because now all that aggression or whatever it is has some direction to it, instead of just being wild nonsense. Because that's how we tend to react. We just go crazy.
Oh, that's how most people are. I mean, I'm maybe not most people, but at least in my experience, people that something's taken away from or they lose something, there's a lack of accountability that a lot of people have, and I know that that's almost getting to be a nauseating phrase, but there really are a lot of people that I've even dealt with in the last 6 months where you've done something to create this problem. Like, and you, every time you were asked to stop doing it, you continued to do it, or you made it worse. Then you end up at this point where there's consequence, and then you explode at the consequence. And that's, in your case, it makes more sense because you're dealing, like, you're not wrong. You're dealing with war. You're dealing with something that you connect with. But then there are people who have just done nothing, and when they're expected to do a slight thing, it's wrong, or it's deliberately wrong, or they're pushing you, whatever that might be, because they enjoy it. But then when they end up getting, I just say it, fired or whatever it might be, they take it out on you because they... And I don't understand that ability to never, ever look at yourself and go, this is my fault because of A, B, and C. And so many people do that, and it's the most aggravating shit in the world to me.
Yeah, it is. Why do you think that happens? Why is there such a lack of accountability?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just so many people are justified by their parents. I think the fact that our generation were definitely a lot of still teenagers mentally. I'm not even going to say I'm not guilty of that a lot in some of the things that I do and behave, and then I have to check myself. I mean, you can look at how we dress, you know. In 1960, not you look great.
We would both be in suits right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, and we would have been wearing suits since we were 26. You know, it's just a different way that we've all sort of devolved or regressed, whichever way you want to look at it. But I think the ability for people to never admit they're wrong or to learn something from someone else, and this stubborn nature is becoming a real problem, because it just allows people to be easily triggered, be angry, not be able to handle something with any kind of decorum. Whether it's a guy going, look, I think we have to replace the tire, and now you're throwing a purse at them, you know, screaming. It, like, just the way people will pop off at any place. It shows that there is this sort of lack of accountability that we do, especially as Americans.
Yeah, I talked about this. I talked about this quite a bit in the early days of this veteran suicide crisis.
Sure.
Purpose just happens to be the key to making all of this work in society. You know what I mean? People need to know what they're doing is for something as a collective group, but also individually, and we don't anymore. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is just nihilism, you know, that comes with certain generations. Part of it is, you know, being gaslit to hell and back for 60 fucking years. You know what I mean? About literally everything. Nothing's been real for a while.
Oh, well, and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah, we're in the dumbest period of human history too.
Ever. And they're like, we were going to release the JFK documents. What's in it? They're like, nothing.
Yeah. But the last piece to any puzzle, no matter how good you get at something, you know, a particular skill, talent, job, being a good dad, whatever the fuck else, right? None of it really matters until there's a direct line of purpose assigned to it between your effort and outcome, like in the middle of that. Or I guess the fuel that takes you from effort to outcome is purpose. And then, you know, we've got this predilection to, if you see somebody succeeding, then you give them a break. No, you should give them more responsibility. I mean, think about a man at the end of his life who's worked his whole life. He retires and dies. You know what I mean? Like that, we are literally built to do this stuff. And then in the early days of the vet suicide stuff, everybody's talking about pills and fucking like sitting in a kumbaya circle and all this shit. I'm like, no, man, this is fucking stupid. This is not in any way how men operate. We have a purpose problem. We don't need a pat on the back. We need a job to do. And, you know, your trajectory is proof that it's not unique to the veteran community or any kind of violent community either. You had a particular problem, and having the purpose of your son was what made you finally make the decision, because that's what happens. You finally make a decision, like, no more of this stupid bullshit.
Yes, you have to hit that point.
You're in control of it. But it was that purpose that was the spark to do it. That's the fuel. That's like the gasoline that goes into your engine every single day. So when we look at people that are down on their luck or emotionally distressed, and we think that they need empathy, and to some degree they need empathy, but they need empathy. This is for men. They need empathy in the form of, like, get up off your fucking ass. We don't have time for this shit, right? That's what men typically need.
Yes.
And we don't give it to them. We give them no tough love. We give them pussy bullshit, and we raise a generation of pussies and wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a group of people that do not understand basic consequence, or they're able to check themselves, it's easy to have your brain get eaten away at. And then if you are being, like, the worst thing I think you can do in that scenario too is when you're talking about the kumbaya circles and the way that it's treated. It's like, okay, you're gonna strip them of their masculinity, make them feel that what they didn't have a purpose, all of a sudden put all these things into their head that is not going to correct a soldier in any way, or a man. And then you're going to get a result that you don't like, which is going to be addiction and suicide.
Yeah, I mean, if your car gets crashed into You don't cover it in pillows. You
No.
replace the fucking tough shit,
Yeah,
the metal, right?
yes, and if it's too weak, you get a new one that's even tougher.
I just don't understand how we were so easily captured by. I guess I do. It was women's involvement in things, to be honest, and that's our fault. Not for letting them be involved, but for like their involvement should have extended up to in the same way that it should for every human being, regardless of their sex and even when sex is not a factor, you should be involved up to the level of your competence.
Yes.
Right. Like if I call my tax attorney right now and he's got questions, I give him all my shit. Here's all my shit. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here.
Right.
Here you go. But if he's like, hey, I think you should do this joke on the show tomorrow, I hang the phone up, right? Because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Right.
He's not a comedian.
Right.
So this is, we allowed women a seat at the table, which was the smart move because we benefit from it. And then we allowed them a voice that we allowed their voice to extend into the manly world, which never should have happened. That's just not how. Like you shouldn't be telling women how to feel. That's if you. I mean, try it sometime and see how it works out. For
Yeah,
you.
I like to tell them their
Tell them to
emotions.
calm down.
Yeah.
Tell women to calm down, especially on that week before they're bleeding.
Yes.
It's like the 3 days. Just get one of those apps that tracks the whole thing, and then 3 days before there's a red mark on it, just start giving her the business.
Yes.
And see how that works out for
Yeah.
you. But we shouldn't be doing that. That's fucking stupid, right?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah. How could you?
We know what the reaction will be, and yet there's still part of you that does it.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what I should do? Not this, but I'm going to go ahead and poke this bear and watch how angry somebody can get on me and fly off the handle. And there is a part to that where, yeah, we opened up a lot of things where we said, okay, you have like the idea of like the boss girl and that it's just awful. But they're using a generation of men who can't do anything but play with their dicks, and they're becoming billionaires on OnlyFans. Like, there's a guy who goes out and works for his money and then just sends it to somebody because you can see your twat. It's absolutely batshit.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we didn't do any favors to women.
No, you're just a hole now.
Yeah.
You're back to being just a hole, and then you're not even looked at like a mother, somebody with opinions, somebody with just the beauty of a woman and everything that she is. We've been able to kind of strip that for some reason, and I think it's terrible.
Well, he told them that to be equal, they needed to be like men.
Right.
But that's retarded, right?
Yeah.
That's like, I just don't understand how that ever became the talking point.
Or you have people that are deciding to, you have two female pool champions heading off for or two males in the female pool championship who are winning. It's like, wow, this is where we went, because you have people that I think are confused. Obviously, there's a different element to it, but that's very soft and weak to me, to start challenging women in pool. And then to the point that you're just playing another guy in the finals because we're so lost and we think that's somehow a win. Like, there's nothing that looks like less of a win to me than a guy dressed like fucking Tootsie winning a pool championship. It's stupid.
It is ridiculous. We live in a ridiculous period in human history.
Right. And it just shouldn't be. Like, that's there's no reason why we should be equal in the sense of women have to be men, because that's not the shit that we like about women.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, we don't want them to be exactly that.
Yeah.
The girl who goes out and has a bunch of beers with the guys and hangs out, if you date her, she's a woman. There's always been these ideas that there's an exception, but there's not. If there's a guy who's hanging out with all women, he's gay.
Yes.
It's not really in our psychological nature to be doing this.
Yeah, and then again, every time we try to outsmart nature, it just doesn't go well for anybody.
No.
Not that you should like. Determinism can be a trap in its own too. Like, well, I'm this, so I have to behave this way. Well, no, you still have choices, right? But again, it's like being in the current. Like, you can swim upstream if you want. That's a choice to make, and there's gonna be, maybe there'll be some good days. Maybe it'll all work out for you. I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
Little
it's
do I know.
rare, but it might.
But that's that's a low probability outcome. So, you know, I mean, I guess you have to wonder what if you. I just don't know. If you ask 1,000 people what their purpose in life was, I would love to hear the answer to that question, because I don't know if. I think there would be a lot of ums and ahs and a lot of incoherence, but I'm not sure there would be. I think people would pause for a moment and then fall back to some platitude or another, whether it was religion or something else, and that's fine. If I said, what's your purpose in life, and you said to reach nirvana, or you said to reach, if you're a Mormon, reach the celestial kingdom, or to live a good life in the eyes of God, or whatever other religion, and you immediately said that, I'm like, all right, cool, that's a noble purpose. If that's what
Absolutely.
if that's what you like, good for you.
And that's what you believe.
But,
and
yeah.
And
but
I
if
mean,
you pause for 10 seconds
but...
and then say that, I don't believe you. I think you ran out of things to think about, and you're like, well, it's probably this then. That's not a thing. If it took you a pause in 10 seconds to figure out what your purpose in life is, and you don't know what your purpose in life is.
Well, and that's why you have so many people who, we have a nation of Amazon shippers, and I don't know what other people really even do for a living at this point besides lawyers and, you know, teledoctors. Like, just the way everything's becoming is very much, it's not, I don't want to say hard work, but there's not a masculine work to it.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's interesting.
And if you can honestly answer, well, I live for my children, and I can tell you that. It's how I got, you know, how I stay sober. Then, to me, that's the purpose. And the purpose is, if I'm not trying to be the best I can be, and I fall short constantly, and I really need to fix that. But it's like, when I'm not the best I can be, that's not doing anything for my kid. Like, it's strong an example.
Yeah. I mean, it's a reason to get up.
Yes.
So in front of my, on my dresser in front of my bed where I sleep, had this sign made, and it just says, it's not about you. So when I wake up, the first thing I see is that. And if I'm being a little bitch that day and don't feel like getting up and doing what I'm supposed to do, then that's a little reminder to do it. And sure, sometimes I fucking look at it, roll my eyes, and go back to fucking sleep. You know what I mean? But, more often than not, it's useful to me, and you know, it definitely helps me. I think most, if not all, the meaningful things you do in life will be in the service of other people. We're built that way.
Yes.
To like seek out each other's comfort, whether it's comfort through building, the dudes getting together, building walls and hunting, or the females having and nurturing children.
Yes.
We seek out comfort in that regard. And once you recognize that, then this me shit goes away, and you can start to live a life that actually matters.
Yeah, and you have to not get it twisted, though. Like, when there's that, and then there's seeking approval of others and trying to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And that's where I've fallen short a lot, because I'm thinking, like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. I mean, for lack of a better term, help these people. We can work together. We can do, you know, I've fallen short a lot in the idea of the difference between that and just trying to be a people pleaser. And that's, I don't know, that's part of my addictive nature. But eventually you have to learn to just drown out worthless people. And there are a lot of worthless people that you just have to make amends with the fact that exists. I wish it wasn't like that. But if somebody's so stubborn, they never refuse to learn anything, they never look at themselves, and they never correct their behaviors, why are you bothering with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of that is, of that people-pleasing stuff, is feeling like you're the outsider. Alfred Adler from Adlerian psychology actually coined the phrase inferiority complex.
Yes.
Right? I think imposter syndrome was somebody else, but similar, right?
It's very similar.
And perceived weakness in yourself can go in two directions, or in three directions, really. It can make you self-loathing, and self-loathing typically leads itself to seeking approval from other people, constant approval from other people, which is why literally every comedian that's ever existed is a self-loather, and you don't have to even ask them. They'll tell you.
No, I am. I mean, yeah, it's nobody's ever heard me talk is surprised by the fact that I have that.
Or it'll paralyze you and you become a nihilist, right?
Yeah, well,
which some of the same symptoms of those two things, or you see it as you turn into the violent version of Eeyore. Fuck those trees. I'm gonna get better than that guy or than myself now or whatever.
Right.
And you got to go through the paces of that, because being competitive is good, certainly. Measuring your success versus somebody else's is stupid. But that's how else do you do it in the beginning when you're first learning how to do that? You got to do that, right?
yeah, and I think you want to. I mean, there's a curiosity where you should look at somebody else and wonder what is their recipe for success.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not really learning anything.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between comparing yourself to somebody else all the time and doom scrolling to give yourself a reason that you're not good enough, and then actually going out and trying to be as successful as the person that you admire.
Yeah.
And I think people get caught in the first trap. It's like comparing yourself constantly in a negative way is terrible.
Yeah, it's not smart.
Yeah, but being competitive with yourself and knowing that you can be the best you can be, or at least trying the hardest you can, is a huge benefit. Because then you can look at other people and you'll realize that if you're actually doing that, you're already farther than everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. You at some point, you've got to simplify your life, because there's a lot of noise out there. And we go through the paces. We're young, we don't know shit. Then we're a little bit older and we think we know everything.
Yeah.
And then we get a little bit older and we're like, oh, fuck, I don't know shit again.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened? And then it's like drinking through a fire hose. And at some point, I wish we did more for people in their 20s to make this happen. It used to just be the struggle of life would do it for them naturally. We're going to have to figure out something else moving forward probably. But at some point, and I think the 20s is the time to do it, the early 20s, is you got to decide who you want to be and narrowly focus on becoming that person, whether it's the best version of the athlete part of yourself, or a warrior, or a fucking father, or a student, or whatever.
A flapper girl with pubic lights.
Yeah. With maybe a merkin these days.
Yes.
They're all shaved off. But you got to have goals, but don't be specifically goal oriented, right?
Yes.
Like if you're only doing comedy to make money, then you'll fail.
Absolutely.
You'll fall trapped to audience capture at some point, and it happens to a lot of people.
You're pandering, and you don't find your voice.
Yeah, and people don't respect it.
No.
They just don't, man. And comedy's not the only example. It happens anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, with that, though, you lose your teeth as a comic.
I think that's the best example, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's because I'm somewhat in the industry and I see it happen a lot.
Right.
But it fucking sucks, man. But what you should be doing is defining the underlying principles of why you want to be that person. What is it that stuff gives me? And look, you might find out like, oh shit, I don't like that, so I'm going to change my mind and try to go for something else.
Sure.
But that process is important. But once you figure out the underlying principles of exactly why you want to be that person, then you can start living those principles for their own sake. That's when you start to see like real growth as a human being, and you'll be like the side effects, the goals will be a resulting outcome of that, but it's a side effect of the effort, right?
Well, and people also remember their struggle or working hard or where they came from, at least if you have some level of success. And part of that in your life is what's going to please you the most.
Yeah.
And sometimes people take that so far. I mean, there's so many people on their deathbed that their main regret is overworking, not seeing their family, not being present, and not enjoying the parts of their life that are truly a gift.
Yeah.
And once you realize that you have these moments and you can kind of be inside these moments and live in the moment, as strange as it sounds, it does benefit you to really realize like there is something to there's no past, there's no past, there's no future, there's now, because that's real.
Yeah.
There's nothing more real than that.
Yeah. The no past, no future thing is really important, I think, because I'm sitting in this moment right now, and certainly there's somewhere that I want to be down the road, whether it's later this afternoon or 10 years from now or whatever, right? And creating a vision board and constantly thinking about where I want to be and focusing specifically on that goal will work. That's retarded.
No.
Like, you have to get up and go do things, right? So
you shouldn't have to stare at a board to realize what you want out of life.
Yeah. So you have to reduce those things down to the underlying principles and just live those. And the idea that people are forward-looking and shaping their lives through conscious choices, and even their subjective perceptions, rather than just being determined by past events, is a much healthier way to go through your life, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like, we tend to think in a very deterministic mindset, which is to say, well, I'm depressed today because this thing happened. It's like, no, you're depressed because something happened and you allowed yourself to fall into that. That's why you made a choice to allow that, right?
No, and I struggle with that a lot.
We all do.
And I really, yeah.
Whether it's depression or some other negative thing.
Well,
right?
and it's an excuse to not try your hardest and to not go you kind of want that.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that doesn't want to do anything.
Especially us, like our generation.
Yeah, our generation is
Wants
great.
to play video games.
Yeah.
Eat fucking Cheetos and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, once there's an emphasis on like encouragement and self-awareness, like, all right, I'm sitting here right now. I'm not going to hyperfixate on the future, but I do know where I want to be, so I'm going to take those steps. And if I need to change it up in the future, I'll change it up in the future. And then you said another thing about comparing yourself to other people. I'll give this advice. When you see somebody that's on a different path than yours, definitely don't hyperfixate on their path or their success, but don't ignore them either, right? Because observe and learn from them and see what you can apply back to your own principles. For sure.
Well, and then becoming bitter.
Yeah.
It is another element of that.
Well, you either become delusional or bitter.
Right.
If you focus on other people.
Yes.
Right? And so on other people's success, not on other people. And that's one end of the spectrum. And the other end of the spectrum is that at some point you have to realize that all the things you do, getting better at this thing, getting in better shape, taking care of yourself, learning more things, being strong, being able to fight, whatever it is, you're doing that for somebody other than yourself, typically, right? Like, very rarely do you go do some self-improvement thing and it's just for you. You're trying to impress a woman, or you're trying to make your family's life better, or you're trying to be better at the job you do. But what's the purpose of that? Because you want social acceptance and you want to be more successful for your family or whatever, right?
And that's why sobriety fails.
Yeah.
That's why when people sit around in a meeting or sit around at least in an intervention and tell you what you need to do, you're building up a resentment, and that person's probably going to go back to the bottle or the needle within 6 months to a year. It has to be an awareness in you, or it can never be corrected.
So from the addict's perspective, what would your advice be in that regard? Like, if you're somebody that's struggling, you're about to go to a meeting and you're going to hear the same old stupid platitudes and tropes. Every now and again, there's somebody that's got some wisdom in there, for sure. I don't mean to dispel that.
No.
But you're going to hear a lot of stupid shit too, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
It's hard as a human being, it's just difficult to communicate to other people sometimes, especially strangers. But
it is, and especially going to have a weird hierarchy, and some people are going to act like they know more than other people. And I remember one time I went to a meeting, I guess, when I was about 17, and I was very successful about being sober. Or I wanted to be successful, as much as a 17-year-old can be. And when I went to the meeting, the guy said, "I've spilt more alcohol than you've drank." And that gave me permission to realize this wasn't for me. I can still drink. And granted, I was looking for it. But in those situations, you have to look for the wisdom if you're serious about it, because somebody will say something, or you will connect with somebody that can at least keep you going for 24 hours. And if you're serious about it, you're going to listen. And the problem is our generation isn't great at listening either. We're great at talking, but we're not great at listening.
Well, we were never forced to listen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, but not. I mean, a lot of ways made it so you didn't want to, because you're learning about stuff you don't care about, and you're trying not to nod off.
Yeah. My home life wasn't super great, but there were some things that I was taught that I appreciate to this day. One is just like respect.
Yes.
And hierarchies. in general. Like, you're not in charge, and you will shut the fuck up, right? There's a saying that you should speak as if you know exactly what you're talking about and listen as if you know nothing. That's a difficult thing for human beings to do, because especially these days with all the information out there, none of this shit used to matter. It used to be you were a fucking farmer, and are you a good farmer? Yeah. Like, here's my proof. Are you a good dad? Here's my fucking kids. Check them out.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. I'm a good man.
Right.
And there's all the validation I'll ever need. Now it's like, oh, did you hear about this thing? Like, no, I don't care about that. What do you mean you don't care about it? I mean, I don't fucking care. That's what I mean. There's like, I've got 80 years on this planet, and I'm going to try to use them for something other than whining on the fucking internet. You know what I mean? And then people like the entire social currency has changed such that you have to, again, drink through a fire hose 24 hours a day to make sure you're up on the latest. Otherwise, you're not a good person. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? That's not how we've ever gauged goodness in a human being before.
No, and if you look at a protest where a lot of people go to now or have for the last few years, there's nothing more empty. You interview the people, they rarely know why they're there. They can't even tell you what's bothering them. It just gives them some sense of purpose to be part of a giant group. And they don't actually feel that way about anything, and they haven't researched enough to realize why they're even angry, which just means they're going so other people will like them or be tricked into thinking that they're a good person.
And they also want to scratch the itch of being part of something bigger than themselves.
Of course.
Right? Which is like, people often say, even people I know that are atheists, and like James Lindsay, for example, often say that the death of religion was the death of Western civilization.
It's true.
And you and I are not religious people, but I agree wholeheartedly with that, because what did we replace it with? A fucking mirror so we could look at ourselves.
Exactly.
It's the worst possible thing you could have done, man.
Yes, and you had at least a Sunday, a morality, you had something to go to. It was
a shared common value.
Yes.
Or set of values, rather, yeah.
I mean, even where I grew up, it was pretty rare that anybody at 11 o'clock wasn't at the church or at 10 o'clock on the Sunday. I mean, I was raised Catholic. And that was, all my friends were raised Catholic, and we're all driving to church in our Sunday best, and that's part of what it was. And you can see, I mean, in the short amount of time from the 1980s until now, the drastic change in human civilization, at least in American civilization.
Yeah, and I don't know what the solution is, because that kind of religion, there's some pop going on right now with the younger, the like 16 to 25-year-old generation in there, but I don't think it'll be sustainable because the infrastructure for it is going away, right? So I just don't think that'll be sustainable. It'll be interesting to see what we decide to do that with, because if you it's not smart of us to be dismissive of people that we disagree with, whether it's their methodology and tactics or their message. And the reason is, we all have this image of a fucking trope of a liberal woman, probably with some kind of color in her hair, at one of these protests that has no idea why she's there, just like the exact scenario you described. But what we can infer from that woman is that she cares about things. That's not bad. We can infer that she's seeking out a group activity that's better than herself. That's not bad.
Right.
Right? We just took some options away, and now she's making a fucking decision. It's like, okay, well, is there a better option that we in civilization can provide for this person who clearly has an empathetic nature about her, but it's being weaponized by media and politicians into something nasty? Is there any way to draw that like good base nature to want to be around people, be part of something bigger than yourself, and show external empathy even to strangers, and turn that into something that matters for our country? Or are we just going to call her a liberal cunt and move on with our day?
And that's what I think that's what the answer is most people do that. And they don't realize, like, my problem with the entire left liberal movement is I would have considered myself liberal I did for a long time. But when it stops being so much about empathy or helping other people and it becomes violent, with burning Teslas or whatever that might be, rioting, that's no longer, to me, a liberal ideology. That's just completely misplaced anger and permission to hurt others that have hurt you. So it makes zero sense to me how that could even be looked at. Not that it would be a conservative ideology either.
Yeah.
And then you have the conservative idea, and I think that's the problem with a lot of it, is they think that religion isn't necessarily anything but a conservative ideology. But it does, I think it works. I think that there is something to it that does work, because I believe in God personally, and it's like I believe there is something evil. I do believe that there's a devil, and I think we're looking at him more and more now than ever before, because it's not so much about just making you fail or angry or not try, but I mean that, and just doing and killing people, but it is telling you how worthless you are. How nothing's going to be good. Every single thing that you're being fed online tells you you're not good enough. I mean, there is kind of this takeover where your dopamine receptors are being affected by telling you that you ain't shit.
What is that quote? The devil comes in many forms.
Yes.
C.L. Hall, I believe, said that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you say a word like that and people have this image in their head of a fucking red dude with horns or whatever. It's
an
like,
absurd,
okay, maybe, yeah. That's kind of like an absurdist view of or a caricature.
Yeah, it's a drawing of a pure evil. Doesn't come in the form of you can tell they have horns and they're pure evil comes in a form that you're usually not expecting.
Yeah, and if you accept the premise that good exists, then you have to accept the premise that evil exists. Nothing in nature exists in a vacuum. And nothing in nature is alone ever.
No.
Even matter has antimatter, right?
Right.
So it's like to the very core of the physical universe, this is true. There's no reason to suspect it wouldn't be true in this regard as well. So what are you gonna do with that information, right? Because you can ignore it, that's fine. You can become hyper religious about it, that's fine as well. I don't know how useful either of those things are. Probably not very much, frankly, because being hyper-religious tends to bury you in minutia, right? The Catholics know this better than anybody.
It's off-putting to others.
Stand up, sit down. I'm not going to fucking mass anymore, okay?
Yeah, it's why I stopped going when I was about 13.
Yeah, the ritual stuff gets me. I don't understand that.
Neither do I.
But the message that there's darkness beyond the wall, and that's why we built it, that resonates with people, because that's all of human civilization. That's why we have human civilization. So I think religion's not done itself any favors in that regard not by liberalizing either, or becoming progressive like some of these religions have.
It's very bad to change up what you're supposed to. You can't preach something your entire existence of your religion and then switch it up and make a decision for your God.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to people. I think that the mind rebels at that stuff. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be some new religion or something, but it hasn't always been the case that people were like the pioneers in the American West. They weren't like, you don't see a lot. You see a couple churches built out there, but it's nothing like the southeast of this country, which was established well before any of that.
Yeah.
You go to Montana, you'll see a church here and there. If you go to South Carolina, there's one on every block, everywhere you go.
And you have mega churches, which to me are the most ridiculous.
There's a documentary out now on those. I don't remember what it's called, but I think it's on Netflix.
I got to check it out. There's so many that have come out. There was one in Texas. I can't remember the name of it. Hillcrest. The guy was like having, the guy was like sexting people.
Yeah.
But then you had the one to me that was the most insane was Ted Haggard, who they did a documentary on Ted Haggard, and while they're filming the documentary, they find out that he's been having sex with male prostitutes and doing crystal meth with them.
Yeah, and then they took him to the cabin in the woods.
Yes, and now he's
now he's straight again, yeah.
No, now he runs kind of a gay church, I think, but he had a family, he had kids, and I mean, but through the whole documentary, the guy's riding a scooter through his church being like, "Hello, everyone." And you're like, nobody saw this? We all just turned a blind eye and handed him... Because I'm watching the documentary at the time when it came out in like the early 2000s, late 90s, with no idea who he is, and I know he's gay from the moment it starts. And then, but you see this giant church he's just getting paid tons of money for because people think that that's going to wash away their sin. And it's not. Self-reflection will wash away your sin. I believe true prayer, I believe changing your ways, showing and not just telling. There's ways to change your life, but Joel Osteen and people like that, who I think is just a fucking scumbag.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, he has his mega church where he's hiding money in the bathroom, even though the reason why churches aren't taxed is because the money is supposed to be allocated to helping other people, which it never is. I mean, I saw him doing he was preaching one day with a Bentley, and he was like, God wants to open the door to his heart, and he just opens up a door on the Bentley. And it's like, you should be killed and shoved in the trunk of that car. Like, there's no reason that this should be anything people see, because all it is teaching is opulence and the lack of responsibility, and that giving this douchebag money is going to be the right direction. I mean, that can't be a purpose.
No, that's just repackaged plenary indulgences. We've done this
100%.
before, dude. It was 1,000 years old by the time these word of faith preachers started doing this bullshit, and somehow people fell for it again. Which, you know, it's because there's this deep search for meaning. You know what I mean? That's why I went to seminary right out of high school. I wasn't even religious back then, but I was like, this is definitely the way that people have come to understand their place in the universe. Forget about science.
Yeah.
Like, science is interesting, but that's more of a modern take. The way that for tens of thousands of years, from the time we were scrawling, I guess you could call them natural force deities on cave walls and shit like that. That's how we were like, okay, we're here. What the fuck are we doing here? Shit. Oh, lightning. All right, who did that? I don't have an understanding for that. So that's got to be some force higher than myself that made that happen.
Yes.
So the physical forces became the first gods for the most part, and then as we evolved socially, it started to become human traits, right? Like Zeus was the father, and we have a god of war, which isn't even a thing. It's just something that happens. It's not a physical thing, right? We have the god of wine, but more like god of, I guess pleasure would be that. And then when we have the god of love, we have all these things. Like, we start to take human emotions and say, oh, well, these are deified now. And then the next progression, I mean, Zoroastrianism is kind of a blip, but the next progression is Judaism that led into Christianity with monotheism. It's like, okay, now this is a singular person with an identity. And all we did was, like, looked at ourselves in the mirror. Like, okay, well, it's probably something like that, because this is how we understand the universe. It's probably something like that.
Well, and create law and say it's in the image of him, and everything that makes sense to us that still puts us on the highest playing field.
Yeah. And then which is fine, because we, you know, we are the most conscious of the creatures.
Yes.
Right? So that makes sense, I guess, that we would come about it that way. But the farther we got down that rabbit hole, and it's ironic, the more distinct and individual the monotheistic God became, the less we cared about the individual principles surrounding the religion, and the more we cared about everything else.
And we had faith more so in people's honesty and inability to con you while you're trying to be a good person than we had faith in God. And I mean, that's what a tent revival is. A tent revival where a guy gets up and can walk who was paralyzed, that's proof of God. Well, that eliminates faith.
Yeah.
So on the entire ground of religion, that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
But then people that are supposedly God-fearing people are going to buy that, which makes zero sense because it destroys every concept of why you're there in the first place.
Yeah. That's why I like the Jesus story, because I don't know if it's I don't know if he was even a real person, to be honest.
Yeah, I struggle with it, but I believe it. I have faith in it.
Yeah.
But there's times when I struggle because for same reasons I'm sure you do.
Well, who knows? I don't know that it matters, to be honest, if that was a real person or not.
I don't think it does either.
Because the story shows you how to live your life in a way that it would be best for you and everyone around you, I think. Of all the stories of creators and deities and all this stuff, I think that one hits home for me the most. And one because he communicated in the way that we've always communicated. That's why it always rang not the godhood and all the other the stuff like that, but the character of Jesus always rang true to me in the same way that, you know, somebody in a novel would, because that's the way we've always communicated, sitting around a campfire listening to our elders tell a story about something. And part of the story was a moral principle, right? Like, this is how you behave in this type of situation, so you can know that when you go down the road. And the most misunderstood and Jesus spoke primarily in parables when he was teaching. The most misunderstood of which is the Good Samaritan. We think of a Good Samaritan as just a good guy,
Yes.
right? But Samaria and Judea were at war for years, forever. They were enemies. That's the story, that, you know, some professionals and a friend walk by and he gets no help, but then his sworn enemy comes by and helps him. That's the story being told there, right? And I feel I don't understand how that's been so lost on us for all this time. I don't remember ever hearing that in Sunday school.
I haven't heard it until now.
Okay.
And I was raised Catholic.
Yeah. So Samaria and Judea were at war with each other. The story.
I knew that part, but I didn't know
the message of that story is that the Samaritan was his enemy. You know what I mean? That would be. I don't know what the analog today would be, because there's not a whole lot of like nice Al Qaeda people, but
it's very hard. Yeah, when somebody thinks everyone should be killed by them, that seems. Yeah. God, like the flaw in that is just the fact that God didn't create everybody so you could go kill them. Like, your religion's incorrect. And Jesus taught the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
And right in your story right there with the Good Samaritan is the complete opposite of that. There's no way for that to function as a religion. That's just a takeover.
Yeah.
And people don't want you to question it because it's somehow bigoted. And it's like, well, why shouldn't I be bigoted against something that doesn't want me to exist?
Yeah, that seems like a natural reaction, to be honest. Like,
it seems fair.
Are you bigoted against cancer?
Right. Are you
nobody would say that's retarded.
Right.
But yeah, that's the story. The biggest story, or the best story, at least from my perspective, that came from this series of parables was that one. And it not to say that you shouldn't have enemies. Life is complicated. We have enemies sometimes. And I don't think you should commit suicide. You shouldn't put your gun down and walk into gunfire to be nice to your enemy. That's stupid.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, Joshua and Caleb were great warriors. That was never a problem. But, you know, outside of the specific context of battle, this dude taught you to, irrespective of what this guy's group may be involved in, he's still a unique individual, and you should treat him as such. And pretty much every great thought leader throughout all of human history has said that same thing to some degree or another. And we kill them all.
Yeah, every
single goddamn one of them.
Even the modern ones.
Yep. Doesn't matter.
And even the second Malcolm decided to see equality, they were like, well, we better shoot him in the head.
Yeah.
You know, it's just anybody who's, not that they're prophets, but they are people that they mattered. They had a purpose, regardless of what everybody can say. Like, Martin Luther King cheated on his wife is what people will throw out. And I'm like, well, he was also a famous guy. Like, the fact that he did things didn't mean that his message was something we should ignore, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, certainly.
And when I read Malcolm X's book, it was in college, because that's your liberal phase. But the thing that I learned from that is, okay, well, he watched his dad, the Klansman, tie his dad to train tracks in Lansing, Michigan, and then get hit by a train. So he's got a little reason to be a bit jaded.
Yeah, sure.
And then throughout his life, he finally goes to a place that's not America, where everything's, boiling, and realizes people are people, comes back with an actual realization, and then they shoot him at a podium.
Yeah. I mean, so all of these different instances throughout human history lead me back to underlying principles. Like, what is it that you actually care about? The largest religion in the history of the world has been pretty clear about it. Like, your job is to take care of other people.
Yes.
Right? Even if you think that they're vile, even if they're your literal enemy, your job is to take care of them. So maybe I don't know if it's a religion, but certainly some kind of philosophy that's not. I don't know how humanism turns inward so quickly. Maybe because maybe we need something specific, and not just well, just be good to people, right? Maybe we can't just rest on Bill and Ted's advice,
Be excellent to each other.
It's like there's got to be, we need to do a better job of articulating why that's necessary, maybe, and maybe you can't do it without a figurehead of some sort. I don't know.
You might not be able to, but it's something that it's important, and there's also a reason where, if people aren't necessarily doing a good thing and maybe, there's so many different angles to that, to discover that thing. The problem is we've become so self-indulgent, and we're more worried about the worship of self than we are about other people. And you see that every single day by a nation of people that want to be content creators. And they don't have the talent for it, or they don't, not that they, maybe I guess some of them do because other people watch it. But when I wanted to be a comic, it was something that people didn't do. And that was part of the excitement of it, was the fact that it was a thing I enjoyed, it was risky, and I had fun doing it, and now it just seems that everybody thinks they're a comic.
Yeah.
And it's flipped over to where it once was. And we're a commentator, and we know everything. And the idea that we know everything is extremely dangerous. And the idea that somebody with so many mental problems is like, I want to help people.
Yeah.
I'm going to run a whole show where I give advice, even though I have no idea who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
I just picked out a personality from a book.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that person will pick out a new personality in the next 2 to 3 years.
Of course.
Then go grift on somebody else. And maybe it is just a fact of life that we're going to worship something, and we have to decide what the thing is.
I think humans are designed for it. I think they're designed to need something like that. Even if it is other people or helping other people or doing the right thing. There has to be that's a morality you can follow, and to me, I think that is an element of God.
Yeah, probably. And maybe you have to work in your life to reduce that down to a single effigy. And if we're not going to have like a religious figurehead or a deity or something like that, maybe it's got to be for some time the person you love or respect the most, your dad or mom or something, and then becomes your spouse. But like you see them in everybody, right? Like, and I know that's true for parents after they have children. I've heard this story a million times, that it changes you and you start to see everybody as a person instead of just fucking meat sacks walking around.
You do, because you realize they came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And then if they didn't, you feel even worse because they were left, or somebody could have been killed. And the people that I've met, like my dad grew up in a foster care system. And that was a bit difficult, I would imagine, but he never said a word about it because he was from that generation. He still had his mom, but she was a drunk. And then our last name's Donnellan, but he took on the name Landau for the guy who raised him. So to see somebody like that, he had the respect of the guy who raised him, and that's how he lived his life, was to be a good father. And he was a great father because he didn't want the guy who walked out the day he was born. He didn't want to be that guy. And that's, to me, that's always been noble, but he didn't do it because he was so set out to do it, maybe. I think it was just ingrained in him. And the last thing it was selfish. My mom was like that too, which is a shame because she committed suicide years ago, and it was a result of losing my dad to Agent Orange and just getting tired of that feeling that no one cared besides her children. But we were all grown up, we were out of the house at least.
Yeah.
And to her, that she couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it sucks because this is a woman who went to mass 2 to 3 times a week trying to find answers.
Yeah. That's the danger. So in paganism, you usually find God through other people. A lot of times it's through sex and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
But I guess one of the dangers of having an effigy human being in lieu of a deity is that the God doesn't die, regardless of what Nietzsche says. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't go away. No matter what happens in life, that's always going to be there. But your spouse can die, your parents can die, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then what? Like, that person that you counted on all that time is banished from the earth. So what do you even do with that at that point? That's a difficult thing.
I think often about the fact that we're all built on this same thing, this same molecular thing, whatever it is, whatever God created or whatever was created, whatever this whole thing is, you are a piece of a star. You're a piece of a rock. You're a piece of your dad. You're a piece of your mom. You're a piece of the people you grew up with, not just from what you learned, but from the fact that we're made of water. We're made of, we're all part of this thing, and we're being held together by something. So that's kind of where I rest on. Like, there has to be a reason for existence other than just to be selfish and out for you. And unfortunately, a lot of times, the only advice I've gotten from agents is be more selfish, and maybe they're right at times in order to equal success. But I have a lot of trouble doing that. And maybe it's Catholic guilt, maybe it's the right thing, but you don't know.
Yeah. Well, TBD.
Yes,
we'll figure it out, or we won't, one way or the other. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to go do a retarded one now.
Oh, can I pimp my book?
Yeah.
I have a new book out. It's called Party of One, a fuzzy memoir.
And it's for children?
Yes, you can read it to your kids, especially if they like drugs and swearing.
Well, mine do. I don't have any kids, actually. So my dogs really like drugs and swearing.
Well, there you go. It's a great book for
what's
dogs.
What's the book about?
It's about the first time I began abusing alcohol when my dad got sick, and kind of taking me through my teen years of arrests and
interesting,
and various stories that I decided to kind of put down on paper years ago as a bit of a fifth step. But I was starting to tell stories on stage, so I decided just to write a lot of them out. And people seemed to connect with it and really like it, so I decided to put it out as a book 5 years after I wrote it.
Interesting. Well, what's the name again?
Party of One, a fuzzy memoir.
Fuzzy's a character, I would imagine.
No, just like warm or fuzzy, like blacked out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like as you read it, you'll get it. But yeah, it's like fuzzy in the sense of like it looks like warm and fuzzy, but it's really just means like blacked out or browned out or.
Browning out is more my speed, actually.
See, yeah, I have lost entire
Time
nights.
traveling.
Dude, and not even like occasionally. Like I've lost a year and a half of my life to drinking blackouts.
Oh boy. All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah, dude, when I look at the stuff that I've written when I was in 6th grade, because they said I was intelligent, it really looks like I was. And then I'll see what I write now, and I'm like, wow, my vocabulary has gone way downhill. Like,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, I can't change it now.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, you guys go check out the book. Go check out. I think you're at Dave Landau everywhere, right?
And then DaveLandau.com for my site for upcoming dates.
Cool. All right, then. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll do it again soon. Thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.